Well, we can always use another hero, and it just might be this guy, an anonymous whistleblower who just might have the goods on Hunter Biden. So protected by Congress, by the Biden administration, by the media. Well, we found out something interesting. This whistleblower doesn't like what he's seeing. He's a senior criminal investigator at the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, and Hunter has been under federal investigation for quite some time, and this whistleblower, he wants protection because he's alleging that the whole damn thing has been covered up. Wall Street Journal, thank you very much. Hunter Biden probe is being mishandled, according to the whistleblower. It reads as follows. The supervisor has details that show preferential treatment and politics improperly infecting decisions and protocols that would normally be followed by career law enforcement professionals in similar circumstances if the subject were not politically connected. And boy, is Hunter Biden politically connected or what? Connected and protected by just about everybody. Look, I know it wasn't the most amazing thing you've ever read, but it's a little bit of a ray of hope, right? A little bit of justice, huh? I mean, you know what they did to Donald Trump. Anybody who came out against Donald Trump, it was the most sensational story in the world, and they got the royal treatment. These whistleblowers, these whatever they call themselves, these people were celebrated, and to this day, they are still profiting. Vindman, you know, the guy, him, right, the chubby soldier, Vindman, even his wife got a podcast, no kidding, a podcast, and she shows up on MSNBC, all because her husband came out against Trump.
Well, our next guest has been traveling across the country to several swing states, speaking with women about getting out the vote. Rachel Vindman joins us now. She's the co-host of the podcast entitled The Suburban Women Problem.
There's a problem here, and it's called the swamp. Are you crazy? The wife of Vindman is now a talking head. All right, now what's going to happen to our whistleblower? I just hope he doesn't get prosecuted, okay? I hope he doesn't get prosecuted. He's not getting a podcast. He's not getting a book deal. But maybe we'll all get justice. And when it comes to taxes, this guy's at the IRS. Hunter's on thin ice. And so it potentially is Joe. You know about this famous, well, should be famous text message? Hunter Biden complaining to his family, I hope you all can do what I did and pay for everything for this entire family for 30 years? What an interesting statement. But don't worry, unlike Pop, I won't make you give me half your salary. More on Joe Biden's income in a moment. Did he declare all this stuff that Hunter gave him? So it's very rich, though. The IRS, Hunter Biden is picking on the IRS. Yes, Hunter is sending letters to the IRS demanding that his political opponents be investigated. Yes, letters have gone to the DOJ. I talked about this a couple of days ago when we first found out. The IRS and the Attorney General of Delaware. And regarding the IRS, yeah, his lawyer said, you got to start an investigation. We represent Hunter Biden, son of the president, and we request the Internal Revenue Service review the tax-exempt status of Marco Polo USA, whose sole member is Garrett Ziegler, a very prominent anti-Biden personality / investigator / genius, very good with research. The president's son is asking the IRS to look into that. That's a problem. And on this tax issue, we saw Joe Biden's taxes for 2022. His income, $579,514. The bulk of that is the presidential salary, $400,000. Can Joe get by on this? By the way, Trump took $1. Remember that? Joe likes the finer things. We all know about the Corvette, the watches, the beach house, all that stuff. The answer is probably not, but he's got to play it safe because everyone should be scrutinizing this stuff. But they weren't in 2017. What happened in 2017? Well, he left the vice presidency, and then it was a bonanza as far as money goes, $11 million. Can't quite figure out how he got all that money. That is the same year that we know Hunter got money from China and split it up between Haley and his uncle. And I don't know. This is a lot of money. It didn't all come from that silly memoir he wrote. I can guarantee you that. So where is Joe going to get his money? And Hunter owes him half of his income. And there's a lot of income. You know, Hunter Biden is an artist these days. Yes, it's a total joke, of course. But guess how much he's getting for some of these junky paintings? $500,000. We shouldn't forget this, folks. I know we all kind of laughed at it, but this is big business. And it continues, and this is a way to get to the president. This is corruption. You can't let this happen. You can't have the son of the president selling this junk art, and it is junk art. What else? Nothing good. This is trash. This is junk, okay? I mean, it's fine if you got a hobby. This is how the New York Times put it. This was actually a slam. Hunter's paintings have the generic smoothness of the art you might see in a posh hotel room. Now, to an average person, that sounds okay, they must be decent. But in the art world, calling the art hotel art is about the worst thing you can possibly say. Yeah. And the Biden administration really at one point tried to pull this off with a straight face by invoking the gallerist. All questions must be handled by somebody called a gallerist.
I'd refer you to the gallerist for questions about the event. We've spoken to the specifics, what the gallerist has agreed to, and what recommendations were made. I've done that several times. I point you to the gallerist on specifics of the restrictions that were put in place. We were very transparent about what recommendations were made to the gallerist, and I would again point you to them or the many times I've spoken about that from here.
Good old lunch pail working class Joe Biden from Scranton. His administration referring people to the gallerist. Okay. All right, got to talk about Eric Swalwell for a moment. Oh boy, yeah. Can you believe he still shows up for work after, well, the Fang stuff? Anyway, he does, and he tries to lecture Republicans about supporting law enforcement, anti-Semitism. He really is a shameless character. Watch.
But this tweet was kept up for months after Kanye West said that he was going to declare DEFCON 3 on the Jews. Mr. Secretary, do you believe that all of us have a responsibility to elevate our rhetoric and to denounce anti-Semitism and anti-police rhetoric in this country so that Jewish Americans and police officers can be safer?
All right, to portray himself as some sort of pro-Jewish crusader, I'm sorry. And we all deplore anti-Semitism, of course, but Kanye West, anybody who ever saw a Kanye West concert or listened to a Kanye West musical, or I didn't do any of those things, by the way, but are they supposed to renounce themselves and renounce all that stuff? It's ludicrous. It's a waste of time. And guess who called him out on it in spectacular fashion?
Now I recognize the gentlelady from Georgia, Miss Green.
That was quite entertaining from someone that had a sexual relationship with a Chinese spy, and everyone knows it. But
I move to take her words down. Completely inappropriate.
Yeah, stand by just a second.
Wow. It's true, by the way. That's a statement of fact. He hooked up with Fang, a Chinese spy. Now, I don't think Eric Swalwell actually knew it. I'm not accusing him of espionage, but potentially he compromised national security. Who knows what she was doing when Swalwell was asleep? They try to shame her. You have to take that back. Oh, how can you say that? Oh, you can't say that, can you? You can't speak the truth. Can you?
The chair recognizes the gentlelady from Georgia and asks if she would like to retract those words.
No, I will not.
Good for Marjorie Taylor Greene. Remember, Swalwell just said that Republicans are in favor of anti-Semitism, don't support law enforcement, all these silly games. Shame on him, and good for Marjorie Taylor Greene. All right. You know, we lost in Afghanistan. We lost a war in Afghanistan, and we're still living with the ramifications. They are global. The world is a far more dangerous place. I said this earlier this week. People should have lost their jobs, but did not, like the Secretary of Defense, like the National Security Advisor, all these guys. They are still on the job. Well, at least some parts of government still function. Now, there is an inspector general that has been looking into our defeat in Afghanistan, the disastrous pullout. And he's frustrated. He released a devastating report, and he's saying the Biden administration did not cooperate.
Unfortunately, as I sit here today, I cannot assure this committee or the American taxpayer we are not currently funding the Taliban.
We are currently funding the Taliban. The Taliban! Remember, the Taliban are running Afghanistan. They are in charge just like they were before September 11, 2001. Just like they were then. And oh, by the way, for 6 weeks after September 11th, because George W. Bush was really slow in reacting. More from the IG.
The lack of cooperation by state, and I'm not talking about the IGs, I'm talking about the Department of State and to a lesser extent USAID, is unprecedented in the nearly 12 years that I have been the cigar. I must add, in the 2 decades that I did congressional oversight, both in the Senate and the House. Due to this refusal to fully cooperate, a significant portion of CIGAR's work, including the 5 reports we did for this committee, have been hindered and delayed.
Well, that's bureaucratic talk for the Biden administration screwed us. The Biden administration does not want the truth known. And let's go through some of the tidbits, shall we? The United States had no business trying to train the Afghan military. That was a disaster that went on for almost 20 years. The Taliban is using millions of weapons that we left behind. That's on Joe. And the same thing can happen in Ukraine. We have so many weapons over there. Not all of them are accounted for. Easily could fall into the hands of the terrorists, like the man pads. These things are a very deadly terrorist tool, very easy to use to shoot down commercial airliners. So much of this stuff is just rolling around Ukraine. And oh, by the way, the Russians went into Ukraine, we believe, because of our defeat in Afghanistan. And Putin would not have invaded if Trump were president. 62% of Americans agree with that. It's amazing. The president, what he does, his decisions, there are huge ramifications. It's obvious, but man, what a reminder, huh? Things happen and history has changed. A man dies in Minnesota, George Floyd, and we are still living with the overreaction to this individual's death. Yeah, I don't like what the cops did. I also don't like that the manual of the Minneapolis Police Department said you could do it for some crazy reason, but it did. I think that the overreaction actually led to this cop getting hit in the head in Harlem all these years later, right? The resentment of law enforcement. How about this young girl getting beaten up on the street in Chicago? I don't think this would have happened had it not been for the overreaction, the total disintegration almost of society in the wake of George Floyd. And me on the way to work. I'm still personally living with the aftermath. This man, I haven't seen this too much, but when I do, it totally blows me away. Smoking marijuana on a train. And that's what you do now. That's kind of okay. So with all this crazy stuff, let's hope that this very courageous whistleblower can tell his story and not be hassled and not be prosecuted. He doesn't need a podcast. We just need to hear his story, and the Bidens need to be held accountable.